next up we have Movie Spotlight, where we discuss some of the latest releases on streaming services or at the Korean box office. This week, joining us in the studio are film critics Jason Bechervaise and Darcy Paquet. Hi guys.
Hello, Heejin.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. And we're going to start off with a British film today.
Yep.
It's called Living, and the Korean title of which is 리빙 어떤 인생, starring Bill Nighy. That's a remake of the famous 1952 Japanese film Ikiru. It's also the English title of which is To Live, by one of the world's greatest and most influential filmmakers, Akira Kurosawa. Tell us about this remake. It garnered a lot of critical buzz. Can you start us off?
Yeah, sure. It was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars this year. Bill Nighy also secured a nomination for his leading performance in the film. As a senior bureaucrat working in London City Council in the early 1950s, that's when the original film was released. He's in the movie he's very British, quintessentially British. Very much into a routine. He doesn't really enjoy life. But yeah, he's told he has terminal cancer, and so he heads to a seaside town seeking to end his life. But he meets this man in a kind of diner, and he basically takes him out into the town to have fun and drink and get drunk. And there he discovers, he finds a spring in his step and a renewed purpose in life. So back at the office in London, he basically decides to use the little time he has left to make a project that's literally buried in bureaucracy. It's kind of on his in tray, and he wants to make it a reality. So this is turning a World War II kind of bomb site into a children's playground. And he also spends time with a female assistant in his office. But this is one of friendship, as he confides in her that his life is coming to an end. It's written by Japanese-British novelist and screenwriter Kazuo Ishiguro. He wrote a number of screenplays and novels over the years. And it's based on, like you say, Ikiru, Kurosawa's 1952 classics, directed by South African filmmaker Oliver Humanis, who made Beauty, and it also features British rising star Amy Lou, who's in the hit series Sex Education.
I see. And Darcy, have you seen the original Kurosawa movie? What do you make of the remake?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the original. Like, I saw it many years ago, and it left a huge impression on me at the time, just because it, in some sense, it's a very simple story, and just it's about this man who finds out that his life is quite limited, and so after floundering for a bit, he finally decides to do something useful in the time that he has left. And despite being such a simple concept, Kurosawa was just a master of so many different things. As a screenwriter and an editor and everything, but yeah, he made that film incredibly moving in a way that was never sappy or felt manipulative, and yeah, so it's a film that I have recommended to students over the years and everything else. And so when I heard that they were remaking this film, I thought, well, is that a smart idea? Because personally, I think that the kind of films you should remake are films that are good concept but which didn't quite come together in the first time, and if you do it better, then you'll get credit for improving on the original. And it's hard to improve on one of the best films ever made, but they did employ some pretty high-scale talent in the screenwriter. He has a Nobel Prize, so you can't get too much more acclaim than that. And he was really passionate about this film. I came across a kind of a top 10 list of his favorite movies of all time, the screenwriter, Ishiguro. And he, he's great taste in movies, but then he talked about, this movie in particular and how much it meant to him and how he really wanted to make a new film, not to discourage people from watching the original, but to do something a little bit different with it and set it in a different context to kind of honor the original film at the same time as kind of introducing more people to the story.
It's very easy to sort of get a very dramatic, what with the plot line, but as you said, Ikiru was very matter of fact, very, very dry. What about this remake, Jason? You're from Britain.
Yeah, I am. Yes.
Did it resonate with you?
Yes, it did. It's very British. I mean, leading character, of course, is he comes across as a very conservative man, yeah. I mean, I just love the way the film it slowly kind of builds up to this kind of climax at the end of the film, which is incredibly moving. And I mean, Britain does subtlety quite well, and I think that's very much true of this film. It is really subtle. It's not. I mean, it's quite different to a Korean film, where you have these kind of moments of just Some would argue that they're very sentimental. Some would argue that they're just very they're very moving and effective. This, on the other hand, it just slowly gets to that point at the end of the film where it is really quite profound. And I think it explores life, death, happiness, purpose in life. And I think that will resonate with anybody. And yeah, it's quite. I love the way they put the archive footage as well from the 1950s, and then they obviously they shot the film, in London and in the UK. So the way they kind of bring that together is also, I thought, it was a good idea. It could have come across as quite jarring, but it didn't. And of course, the performances of the film. Bill Nighy is he has such a presence on screen, and he's so charming. I actually screened a film to my students recently called About Time, which also stars Bill Nighy.
Yes, I love that film.
And he's terminally sick as well. And it's a very different film. This is much better, but living. But still, it's interesting to see how he's able to kind of embody these kind of different sides of the persona. Again, it's not. I mean, it's subtle. He's able to carry these nuances in ways that I think perhaps other actors can't. And so, really, very impressive film.
Interesting. What do you think of this approach? As I mentioned, it's very dry. And given the theme of death, and it's Christmas. It's opening at a time in Christmas. What do you make of this film's approach? Will it connect with the Korean audience? What do you think, Darcy?
Well, it's funny because a film like this, it's a bit of a hard sell, when you describe it. It doesn't sound like a fun time, but I mean, there's a bit of an irony about films that tackle this topic, because I think that if you make a film about death and then you really focus on the drama of it and the melodrama of it and kind of the clock ticking away and I mean all those aspects, then I mean you can create a dramatic story, but in a way stories like this are more effective than I think that you kind of focus on something else. And within Korean cinema there's a movie Christmas in August from 1998 by Ho Jun-ho.
Yes.
Where you also have a character who kind of knows that he's not going to live much longer, and yet that isn't the main thing that the plot focuses on. And that film succeeded in a similar way that this film succeeds. It kind of slowly builds up over the course of the film. You start to feel a real attachment for the characters. I guess the difference with Living is it also has this message as well about kind of what's meaningful in life, and as we live our lives, we tend to focus on things that aren't so important. And so the film kind of reminds you that, you should kind of stop and think and prioritize. So yeah, I mean, there are very kind of few films that I think really have an impact on audiences in terms of, the way that they think about their life and priorities. And, I don't know if it's being overly optimistic to say that, some films can, but if any film can, then it's movies like Ikiru and Living as well.
Yeah, I went to the screening I went to. Actually, there's quite a few people in there, and I noticed that one of the screenings in Seoul was pretty much sold out. Yeah. So it's not screening on that many screens.
One has to,
and it's like one screening a day. But clearly, there are people quite keen to watch the film.
And
I can see why.
Yes, I'll definitely look out for it. And moving on to the next movie that we have, it's a Korean independent film called Rubiner, the Ripple, that premiered at the Busan Film Festival last year. Now, Darcy, this went on release last week?
That's right. I mean, we've reached a time of the year that everybody's kind of waiting for Christmas. Nobody wants to open this week because we have the big film in theaters already, Sorebom, 12/12 the day, and then we have big films coming up for Christmas. So we decided to focus on this film that it's not particularly famous. Most people won't have heard of it, but it's quite good, I think. It focuses on these two central characters. There's a woman played by Kim Ja-young who lost her granddaughter in a rafting accident. And, the details of what happened are all really vague, and the police haven't really been able to shed light on it. And we see her going out pretty much every day into the river with a metal detector, trying to find some clues about it. But clearly she's just completely broken over this incident. There's also a girl who was best friends with the girl who passed away. She was friends with the girl, and then her grandmother is friends with the girl's grandmother. But then this girl's grandmother passes away. And so we have two people whose lives were upended by this accident. And each of them are kind of left alone. And, it's not a simple sort of thing where they move in together and then find solace in each other and things just kind of develop smoothly at all. It's more complicated because, their different characters have alcohol issues. They're, the girls... Everybody's struggling with some level of guilt as well. And so as we're watching the film, we start to slowly figure out what it is that they feel guilty about and, details about what happened in the past. And so the film, it's not really linear in structure. We, have a lot of flashbacks that fill us in on this accident. But the director's name is Im Sing-hyun. It's his second film. He made a movie called Homeless a few years ago that was also pretty well received.
And Jason, I understand that you saw this film in Busan last year.
Yeah, we were discussing what films to do, and I started watching. I was like, I've seen this movie.
Jason watches too many films.
I mean, when I watched it the first time in Busan, I felt a bit conflicted because, it kind of goes back and forth, and I didn't really know what to make of it at first, and I knew it was a film, definitely, a film worthy of attention, but it didn't kind of wow me on a first viewing. But I decided to go back to it, and I think I feel less conflicted on the second viewing. The performances are really good, it is quite serious and dour and morbid, as so many Korean films are, Korean indie movies are. But it did stay with me actually the second time because you do have these kind of two characters, and they're also from different generations as well, and we see more and more of that in Korean films, kind of older characters kind of coming together with younger characters. It deals with alcohol addiction, it deals with grief and guilt and death as well. It's a theme that we have in the film, running theme this week rather. It does hit you actually. It hit me in a way, in a way that I wasn't really kind of expecting on a second viewing. I think what I was comparing both films, I think when it comes to death, Koreans are more kind of they're happy to talk about it in ways I think British people are not. Death is a very individual thing. Everyone deals with it their own way. Whereas in Korea, it's quite I guess it's more in the public domain and more open. And I think that's one of the reasons why we see so many of these films dealing with death. And it's a good film. It's definitely.
So that's it for Movie Spotlight. Darcy, Jason, thank you for bringing us these movies this week, and we'll see you again.
Yeah, take care.
Okay, have a good day.